Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Avero Advisors live stream where business development is taking over this week. I am very excited to have my very own proposal coordinator, Miss Lexi Webster, with me today, and we are discussing what I think is a very engaging topic. At Avero, we sit in a very unique position where we respond to over 200 RFPs every year. But we also help our clients to craft RFPs to solicit vendors for an ERP solution. So we're going to talk about how to implement change and people into your RFP design because we think that these projects are more people aligned than really the blinky lights and the technology. So thank you guys for being here, and good morning, Lexi. Thank you for joining me today.
Good morning. You're welcome. Yeah, glad to be here.
Yes, this is so exciting. Okay, so if you are joining us today, please let us know that you're joining and where you're joining from. And please allow this to be engaging. We love to hear from you guys. We love to answer your questions. We hate just feeling like we're talking to air, right? So please engage with us and let us know where you're joining from today. And if you are a new viewer, and you don't know who Avero Advisors is, we are an independent third-party consulting firm that works only in the public sector to help modernize, to help governments come up into the 21st century. And we do this through ERP consulting, business process re-engineering, and IT strategic planning. But you can find out more. We're on all social media platforms, and we do have a YouTube channel. So please make sure you check us out. All right. I've talked enough for the intro. I'm going to let Lexi tell you guys a little bit about herself and her background and where her passion lies in the work that she does for Avero. So, Lexi, you have the floor.
Cool. Well, my name is Lexi Webster, and I am the proposal coordinator at Avero. So basically, Megan and I both kind of pick RFPs. I handle the whole process of crafting those, responding, and really figuring out what they're asking for and how Avero could be the right fit as a consultant for them. Previously, I worked at a development district in Southeast Tennessee, and it was really eye-opening because I had previously worked part-time at Avero during graduate school. And you hear these stories of, oh, places are so outdated and things like that. But I mean, that was really getting to see it firsthand, just how inefficient things can be when you don't have the right technology and stuff in place. So that was extremely eye-opening. I was a grant administrator there, and then I came back to Avero in August this past year, and really have a passion for trying to modernize the technology environments within public sector organizations because it's, like Megan said, it's not just technology projects, it's people projects, and it will really increase the efficiency of the organization as a whole.
Yes. And tell our viewers what your background, what you went to school for.
Yeah. So at UT, I went to school for a master's degree in public policy and administration.
Yeah. So we're super excited to have Lexi back on the business development side. So you guys are going to be seeing more of her as we go live every week, and then also at a few of the conferences that we are attending. But without further ado, let's jump right into our topic today. So to paint a picture for you guys, creating an RFP document is more than just making a list, right? It's really about capturing your vision and your organization's goals and the united vision of its leaders. And so whether you're looking for an ERP consultant or an ERP solution, I think it really just boils down to three key points, which is setting a vision and aligning that vision with your overall goals for your organization, understanding that change is a huge part of these projects, and really just making sure that at the end of the day, you're ensuring success for your overall organization and that you're going to maintain growth and efficiency for both your citizens and your end user. So
Mhm.
let's jump right into it. So my first question and the first segment that we're going to be discussing today is the foundation, how to set the foundation for a successful ERP project. So Lexi, in your opinion, what are the most common pitfalls of traditional ERP RFPs? And you can give your perspective from, someone who is crafting an RFP for a consultant, or
Mhm.
also our work in helping our organizations craft for a ERP solution.
Yeah. So one of the biggest pitfalls I see is that even if you have your scope of work defined, it is
Mhm.
not uncommon that it is just like the technology department behind this.
Mhm.
And they're the ones who are all in for it and know about it. And then, there have been times we may have won a proposal and we get there and everyone's like, what is this project? What are you all doing? So I think very commonly, that typically the whole organization is not necessarily on board or even understands the importance or what the project is, um, which can really backfire because you can have the new and shiniest technology, but if your people are not invested in it and realize its value, it's not going to make a difference. They're not going to use it. They're not going to maximize its use. And it really, you just poured hundreds of thousands of dollars into something that's really not used. So I think that change management aspect could not be overstated because you do have to really get stakeholder buy-in. And I think that is something that a lot of organizations struggle with, even knowing how to present this to their coworkers in different departments and things like that. So
Mhm.
Avero as a consultant is always happy to even, kind of go through those initial steps with you, even if you're working on putting out an RFP and how to explain that to different departments and stuff so that everybody's on the same page and supporting the project.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point. A lot of times organizations feel like this is a technology project because you are upgrading your technology. And sometimes before even, upgrading your ERP solution, you have to make sure that your systems and your infrastructure can handle it. So, yes, IT needs to be involved,
Mhm.
but IT doesn't understand the day-to-day government operations from an HR standpoint or from a finance standpoint.
Mhm.
So really, this is a time to break down those silos. And a
Yeah.
lot of times, the different departments don't know what questions to ask their CIO, right? And we have
Mhm.
a whole series, by the way, small plug,
Yeah.
on that. But we could go on and on. These are technology projects, but they're also an opportunity for you to really revamp how your organization does day to day.
Yes.
I also want to, overlooking user experience and adoption. That's a big one. And Lexi kind of touched on it a little bit. A
Mhm.
lot of people don't think about change management as being a part of their RFP, but I'm telling you right now, it needs to be included and
Mhm.
the questions need to be asked within the RFP document, to your consultant. How do you expect to
Mhm.
implement change? What are
Yeah.
you going to do?
Yeah.
And how are you going to help me eh, with user experience and the adoption of the new system and the
Mhm.
new programs that we're putting in place?
Yeah.
Um, all right, question number 2. Why
Mhm.
is starting with a clear vision critical before drafting your RFP? This is an easy one, but I would love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah. Similar to the last question, if you don't have a clear vision and the organization is not on board, and I'm not saying you're always going to have 100% stakeholder buy-in, we don't live in an ideal world. Um, but I do think it shouldn't just be one department behind an
Mhm.
RFP. Other departments should be involved and understand the importance of it. Um, but really stating that vision clearly will help you get the responses you want back and also know where you're headed. It is not uncommon to see RFPs that kind of have a little bit of everything peppered in, and it's
Mhm.
really hard to tell not only their scope of work, but what are they actually asking for? What are the benefits they want from this project? Because it's kind of all over the place. And you're not going to get great responses back when your vision is not clearly defined, because people are not going to know how to respond to that.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. We've seen a lot of those RFPs out on the street recently where there's multiple things peppered in.
Yeah.
We want to overhaul our ERP system, but we also want to talk about how risky we are with our cybersecurity, and we also want to upgrade all of our computers and telephones and everything else. And it's like, okay, what are you trying to do? And it's okay that you're trying to do all of those things at once. And you can do that.
Yeah.
But I think you need to take a step back and prioritize those things through an IT strategic plan, which is another plug for Avero. We can help you prioritize what is most important first. But yeah, Lexi, you're right. It's about identifying those outcomes. What are those measurable outcomes that you are looking to achieve through this RFP? What is it that you want? And that has to come from a vision. AV says all the time, when you go to build a house, you don't say, hey, just build me this house. It takes a lot of planning and a lot of effort, and it takes a blueprint, right? You need to know how many windows, how many doors, how many bedrooms you want, right? What colors you want the walls to be, what kind of floors do you want? Same goes with an ERP system. If you don't have those laid out in front of you, there's no way you can share that vision with vendors and get good responses in return. So great answer. And how can organizations effectively prioritize their ERP needs in the RFP?
Not only like the scope of work, obviously that's like the first thing I look at when I'm looking at RFPs and things like that. So that does need to be clear. But also, like, what this whole session is about today is like painting an overall picture. Like, tell us why this project is happening now.
Yes.
Why is it important? When we don't get that overall picture, there's been times where I saw ERP RFPs out and like for a consultant like us, and go back and they've already put in for an ERP solution out like a year ago. And then obviously that didn't work, that failed, things like that. So it's hard to know when you're not provided the background, what exactly this is about and why it's happening now. And like you said yesterday, Megan, when you and I were discussing this, those are questions we ask every time we go to a shortlist presentation. Why is this project happening now? Why is it needed? Like, is this affecting your day-to-day processes, things like that? Because I don't think organizations just go out and decide they're going to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars without this thought behind it. But they also need to paint that picture so that you'll get better responses from consultants like us and ERP vendors alike.
Yes, absolutely. What are your issues that you're currently facing as an organization as a whole? Paint that, let us understand that. It guides us as vendors to be able to understand where we can be most beneficial to you. And then we're also able to craft our response to tailor to that, right? Yeah. And then also, I think an important point to make here is that if you prioritize your needs in the RFP, it differentiates critical features from desired ones. And I'm going to shift gears a little bit and talk about the work that we do with our current clients who are looking for an ERP solution. We've helped them through the needs assessment. We've helped them through their business processes, and now those business processes requirements have become their requirements from their ERP. One of the things I wanted to point out is that a lot of times we go in and these end users have not seen what a new system looks like and what it can do for them. And if you're not utilizing a consultant and you're just going out to purchase the software vendor is going to show you all the blinky lights, all the cool features, all the color changes and cool things to get your attention. But if you are not defining the outcomes and what you need from an ERP system, you're not going to know if that ERP system is going to work for you. You have to set that vision and you have to define those outcomes based on what your business processes are. And they're not the same across
No,
the board.
they're
They're not.
not the same across the board. And of course, you're going to be seeing all these sales pitches and, oh, that's neat and things like that. But if you don't even know what your needs are, how are you going to know if that's going to actually meet your needs when you've not even figured out what the actual needs and outcomes are that you want out of this?
Right, exactly. And it also prevents scope creep, right? Laying out your vision, defining what your goals are, defining those outcomes, what you're looking to achieve throughout this RFP. By focusing on your strategic objectives, you can avoid the temptation to add more to the scope, and you can avoid those change orders, which Lexi, you and I talked a lot about this in our previous live. One of the biggest pet peeves of ours.
Yeah, for sure.
And we've touched on, this question goes along with all of this. Why is understanding your current processes crucial before selecting an ERP? And I'll just say that a lot of times when we go into organizations, there are duplicate processes across different departments. And what I mean by that is that HR could be doing the same thing that payroll's doing. And because they don't talk to each other, they don't know that they're doing the same process, and that it's clunky and that it's wasting time. Right. Yeah. And so being able to map out processes across the different departments is crucial because you take that inefficiency out. And so I think, again, it helps us define what you need from your solution.
Yes, for sure. And kind of like you said, touching on the duplication of processes, there are definitely times where two different people in two different departments are doing the same process different ways, and they don't even realize that one way may be way more efficient, one may take hours, and it's just a disconnect with the talking and realizing the current processes. So I think it's super important to dive into that and realize areas where they could improve, because it's probably not uncommon the areas that they think work fine because that's the way they've always did things, are some of the most inefficient processes they have, and that it could really be sped up.
Yes. Well, our fearless leader has a question for us to stump us a little bit.
Yeah.
So we appreciate your questions, AV. But he says, what role do you all play in the creation of the RFP? And shouldn't that be the job of the purchasing department? What are your thoughts, Lexi?
So yes, technically it's the job of the purchasing department, but Avero, you have done this before, Megan. We are always happy to help craft an RFP and things so that you will actually get what your overall vision is and what you're asking for. So I think it's smart for organizations to engage with these consultants on the front end, like us, so that you really know what all you need to be putting in your RFP, especially for the ERP solution one, for example. If you just go out for an ERP solution and you've not done any of that back work, defining your processes, realizing where the inefficiencies are and things like that, I mean, you're probably not going to get solutions that actually work for what you need. So with a consultant like us, if you're working with us before you go out for an ERP solution, we can help make sure that RFP is nailed down exactly what you need. I mean, we even make what's called a requirements traceability matrix, and we literally list every single requirement you want and need in a new system, needed and desired, things like that. And then, you hand that to the vendor and it's like, check that off, show me you can do that. Yeah. It's not just, oh yeah, we can do all this. It's really like, show us, these are our needs. And you have that very well documented when you're working with someone like us.
So I think the purchasing department is the most important department in local government organizations, not only because that's bad, but because they understand the laws and they keep us out of the news and they keep us out of legal situations. So in that aspect, they are great. We lean on them to provide some of the legal things that need to be in an RFP, but I think it goes back, Lexi, to those silos, right? Yeah. In local government organizations, someone in HR may just say, oh, well, procurement they're just in charge of keeping us out of the news and keeping us out of the, out of the courtroom, or, they craft RFPs. It's fine. And so I think it goes back to that overall alignment across the board. Like, how is this particular RFP going to help procurement in the long run? I think that vision needs to be shared across all departments. But again, like Lexi said, we work with procurement to really help define that scope. To speak to vendors, because I think sometimes, like I said, the vision is lost and they don't know exactly what the whole organization is looking for or the why behind it. So I think it goes back to really breaking down those silos and communicating that vision across the department. But great question, AV. Thank you for that. Let's see. Let's skip on down to the people. I was very, very inspired recently with an RFP that was put out on the street. And if we have time today, I am going to share this example with you all. But they actually incorporated in their outcomes the people and the change management. And they wanted to know how we were going to help facilitate the change across their organization with their people and with their end users. So that's what inspired this topic today. So how does focusing on people and processes change the RFP narrative, in your opinion, Lexi?
Because then at that point, it's not just like focusing on technology. Because like we've said, these are not technology projects, they're people projects. We say that a million times. And really focusing on the people and the change management aspect really paints that overall picture, like we were talking about, of knowing what the entity needs, why they need it now, and why this project is important and what they're expecting from it. It's could be easy to write an RFP that has a very defined scope of work and that makes sense and everything. But if we don't know why this project is important and why it matters to your daily processes and your staff, that's a hard gap to bridge.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a human-centric approach, or it should be. Your end user is the one who is going to, experience the most change, but also experience the most benefit. So a lot of times, when you start talking about an ERP system overhaul, it's like, oh my gosh, some end users are thinking, oh no, my job's going to go away because I'm the only one that can utilize this spreadsheet, and now a software system is going to do it for us. But oftentimes we see that those people are the ones who voice their opinions first. And they want to bring their ideas to the table. And if you allow those end users to come and bring their ideas of where the inefficiencies lie, that's how you get buy-in. But about the people, the people who are going to be utilizing the system, they need to have a voice in this project. And with that, I think it strengthens collaboration, bringing people together. To voice their opinions of why things may be inefficient, or, why things have been done the way they've been done for 30 plus years.
Yeah. And like you said, the collaboration, bringing people together, not only on a particular project we're helping an entity with, but realizing the silos and how, oh wow, if we would just work together and talk a little more and let each other know what we're doing, you wouldn't have all this duplication of efforts. So I mean, learning that could transcend multiple projects, not just a technology project, all across the board.
And communication. So that's a great point. Something about communication should be in your RFP. How are you going to communicate with my team and my end users? How often are you going to communicate? And what forms of communication do you use? Because I'm telling you right now, emails don't work for everybody. Phone calls, Zoom calls, they don't work for everybody. Sometimes you have to get creative and send out newsletters and make videos. So I think it's important to point that out. That's a great point, Lexi, to point that out in your RFP. How is your organization, how is your, ERP system, your teams, how are they going to communicate with me and my end users? It's a great point. All right. Next question. What technical considerations should your RFP include to ensure future proofing? Have any thoughts?
Yeah, so that's a good question, especially for an RFP that's like going out for an ERP solution, because we live in a world that is rapidly changing and constantly evolving with technology. So you need to have aspects in there like, how will this stay updated over time? An organization doesn't
Mhm.
want to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on something and it to be outdated in 2 years. So you really have to ask the questions to the vendor of, how does this stay with the times, update, how regularly do we get updates, things like that, because you don't want to make a huge investment in something that's going to quickly be outdated.
Yes, you want the scalability and flexibility, and you also want integration
Mhm.
capabilities. You want to know what integrations, how your ERP is going to integrate with other systems throughout the
Mhm.
organization, because those are going to be ever
Yes.
changing. And then you want to know what kind of vendor support you're going to have throughout the
Yeah.
lifestyle, or the life cycle of your ERP
Mhm.
solution. Who do I call if I have an
Yeah.
issue? How does that
Yeah.
work? Um,
Yeah. You're not just wanting to buy it off the shelf and then be like, okay, we're done talking to the
right.
vendor. That's it. We're
Okay.
stuck with
Yep.
it. Yeah. Yeah.
Yep. Nope. This should be an ongoing
Mhm.
thing. How do you ensure that your RFP addresses user adoption and training? We've touched on this briefly,
Yes.
but love to hear your
Yeah.
thoughts.
I think that goes back to the change management aspect and how your organization
Mhm.
works, the best ways to communicate that with them, things like that, because the training, in user training and user acceptance, all that is so important, because if those things are not ironed out and done correctly, you could have this great system you just spend a lot of money on and people don't like it, they don't want to utilize it, and it's just kind of a waste. So actually, like, thinking about those training pieces and how your organization works and the best way to conduct end user training with them and how to really get that stakeholder buy-in is super important, because at the end of the day, like you said, they will be the ones using the system, so
Mhm.
they need to support it and understand it and realize the benefits it has.
Yeah, and I think the biggest piece here is the feedback mechanism.
Mhm.
Implementing channels for open lines of communication and how you respond to things,
Yeah.
to end users specifically when they're having an issue, and how you're addressing those issues.
Mhm.
In what ways should an RFP reflect an organization's change management strategy?
Yeah, I mean, really, that should be across the board. Your RFP should be
Hmm.
really tailored to you. It should not just be a copy and paste job of a scope of work. Um, it should really explain, some background, what systems you currently use, why those aren't
Hmm.
working out for you, why you're wanting a new system, the processes each system in place carries out, and why this project is needed now. Because
Yeah.
obviously, there's always a big driver to projects. I don't, especially government entities, don't just up and decide, oh, we're going to invest $500,000 in this for no reason. So there obviously are those big drivers, but I think communicating that to potential vendors like us and ERP vendors will get better responses and show us, oh, wow, they've really thought about this and
Hmm.
understand how inefficient things are being and how it could be improved.
Yes, and don't be afraid to put specific questions that you
Mhm.
would like us to answer in your RFP. Like, specifically with change management,
Yeah.
what is your change management strategy?
Hmm.
How do you manage resistance?
Yeah.
What is your communication plan?
Hmm.
How do you evaluate change?
Yeah.
Right. Don't be scared to list those questions out in your
Hmm.
RFP for us to
Hmm.
specifically address in our response. But I think those are all key things to think about. And the biggest thing here, as Lexi mentioned, is communication,
Yeah.
communicating that vision down, and making sure that open lines of communication exist throughout the project, and what your plans are for communication. Because, like I mentioned earlier, sometimes email doesn't work, sometimes Zoom calls don't work. You've got to get creative, and you've got to be excited about it. And it comes from, the top down. Hi, Bobby. Thank you for joining us. Sorry, I saw a comment pop up and they're just waving. So I thought Bobby had a question, but thank you for joining us today. Let me do this, guys. This is the first time I've ever done this. I'm going to attempt to share my screen. I hope that you guys can see it. If you can't, let us know in the comments, because Lexi can't see that I'm sharing my screen. We tested it earlier, but I'm going to attempt to share my screen. And what I'm sharing is an example of a very clearly defined vision in an RFP. They have defined their scope. They've given us good history, good background. We know what we're walking into when we go to craft our response. So real quick, I'm going to share that and then we'll wrap up today. And so here we go. All right. Hopefully you guys can see my screen here, but I just wanted to point out, first of all, this RFP, I'm only sharing 3 pages, but this RFP was less than 20 pages long, which was great. Because I think vendors get a little overwhelmed when they see that, okay, you're looking at one of 200 pages and it's like, oh my gosh, I'm not going to get what I need out of here. Right. So it was very short, very straight to the point. And Lexi, please provide your thoughts. But, within the purpose, I really like that they are pointing out that they want to embark on a comprehensive assessment of its systems and processes to not only implement technology solutions, but adopt business process improvements and best practices to support the provision of quality government services. That is such a powerful sentence, and that really speaks to me. This is not just about a technology upgrade. It's about our people, and it's about re-envisioning how my county operates. Do you have thoughts, Lexi, on this?
Yeah, I mean, similar to what you said, I think that's super important because, they're telling us straightforward. They're not just wanting new technology to want new technology. They obviously realize how their business processes are lacking and how they could really improve. And even a little further down in the strategic work plan part C, they tell you all these needs, that they have extensive use of manual and paper-based processes, other systems that don't interface with their primary ERP. So they give you lots of background of why this project is needed.
Yes, absolutely. And with just in the first paragraph, I see the ambition of what they're trying to do. They're utilizing this opportunity to change, to really implement change that is going to be everlasting, right? The ambition is very clear in the objective. The next thing I want to point out is the background. We love it when you guys provide a background story for us. This is a chance for you guys to story tell about what your city, county, quasi-government agency is going through currently. Where are the pain points? How many end users are you going to have? How big are you? That's a big one, I think, because there are some vendors that won't go after something because it's too big or too small. So being able to clearly define that here is key. And then tell us, what software you currently use, which they talk about in B here. What are your primary software applications? And then which departments are we going to be working with? Right? Clearly define that. We need to know if we're just working with HR and finance, or if this is a full overhaul. Do you have thoughts on that, Lexi? On this?
I mean, I think that's super important because even in when I'm crafting responses to RFPs, we mention project sponsors. And sometimes in an RFP, you can't even tell who the sponsor is, like what department this would even help. You don't know, honestly. You can always assume IT will be involved at a degree, but sometimes you don't know beyond that. So I think it's extremely important they laid out the departments involved here, so we know exactly what that current state discovery would look like. We're dealing with X amount of departments, X amount of employees. So I think they made that really clear. And it didn't leave you wondering who will we be working with.
Yes, and the other thing to elaborate on the primary software applications used, when I'm reading this, this software that this customer or county is currently on is from the early 1990s, right?
Yeah.
And so that tells me that this project may be a little bit more involved because they may not have the infrastructure or things in place to really support a cloud-based ERP system.
Yeah.
And so with that, your pricing your pricing changes because it is a little bit more involved because
Yeah.
we're trying to bring them from the 1990s
Yep.
to the 21st century.
Yeah.
Let's move. We talked about the strategic work plan. This is just what they recognize about their organization as a whole. So this tells me that they've really done some extensive planning,
Yeah.
and they're raising their hand and they're saying, hey, this is how we operate day to day. This is where we're clunky, and this is where we know we need.
Yes.
Let's talk about the scope real quick. This is what we were going into, and this is where our idea for the live came from today. Talk to me, Lexi, about the scope and what is so ambitious about this. Just looking at the evaluation assessment.
Yeah. I think it's super important here. They didn't just leave it as, assessment or evaluation. They also added business process improvement. You're not just doing an assessment to see where you are. You're also doing it to see, okay, where are the gaps and how can we improve on those gaps? Because at the end of the day, there are outcomes to each of these RFPs, and they're making it very clear that they want their business processes improved. So I think that's super important. It says in the letter, the step A down below, gain an understanding of the organizational structure, culture, and capabilities. They're wanting you to really understand their organization, the culture, and what they're capable of right now and what they could be capable of in the future with different business processes improvement. So I think they did a super good job on their scope of services of extending a step beyond the basic requirements and really letting you know, like, this is going to be a whole culture shift within their organization.
Yes. And I like that they, a lot of times business process, and it can mean a lot of different things. So they really define here what it means to them and what they're hoping to achieve from it.
Yes.
And I think that is very clear to me there.
Yes.
Let's talk about, we could probably combine B, C, and D so we can wrap up today. But let's talk about B, C, and D, the procurement, the vendor selection, and then the implementation and project oversight. What are your thoughts on these sections and how they curated their RFP?
They did a super good job of breaking it down step by step, letting you know exactly what they wanted in each phase. And just looking at the project implementation, project oversight section, you can see that last point C says assist and support the county in change management. So, I mean, they have really thought about this, and even going back up to the part A, they want this process to be highly inclusive and collaborative, involving the participation of departments. So it's not siloed. They have really thought about this and got all their departments on board, and everyone should know what's happening. And that's important because it needs to be an inclusive process. So you can tell that they've really done their homework and realize there is a huge part of change management to a project like this.
Yes, absolutely. And then I like that they define their functional areas again. Here are the things that we need you guys to review, and here are the things that need to be brought up into the 21st century, and they list that here. Again, that helps us craft a better response to your RFP. So I'm going to stop sharing, and I hope that worked for everyone. You'll have to let me know if it didn't. It's super embarrassing, but we'll try next time. I thought that would be a great idea to give you guys a clear example, because it's easy for Lexi and I to stand up here and preach because we read thousands of RFPs, what feels like in a month's time. But if you do have questions or you do have thoughts regarding our topic today or regarding just what we do in general, please feel free to reach out. You can find us on our YouTube channel, LinkedIn, Facebook, who else am I missing? Instagram, Twitter, all of them.
YouTube, yeah.
YouTube. Yes, we are easily available. Check out our website. And make sure, I'm going to share really quick if I can find it. Make sure you sign up for our Untangled newsletter. We've worked really hard on this to make it unique and fun to read. So let me share that with you all and make sure that you engage with that. We release it every Wednesday. So without further ado, thank you, Lexi, for joining me today. I think this was a very engaging and unique topic. Hopefully you guys had some key takeaways and some nuggets that you can take back with you to your organizations. But please feel free to join us next week. We go live every Wednesday at 10 a.m. and we look forward to seeing you there. Thank you.
Thanks.